The sky above Seoul burned with orange fire as Kellen's battlecruiser fell apart around him. Metal screamed against metal. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The ship that had carried him across 7 star systems was dying, and soon he would die with it. Warning, hull breach detected. Life support failing. The cold voice of the ship's computer announced his doom without emotion. Kellen's clawed hands gripped the pilot seat. As another explosion rocked the vessel, his enemies had finally caught up with him. The Vorthak clan wars had followed him all the way to this small blue planet at the edge of known space. Now his ship was falling toward the surface like a burning star. He was 12 feet tall with scales that shimmered deep purple in the emergency lighting. His wings, each spanning 15 feet when fully extended, were already torn and bleeding from the battle. Yellow eyes that could see across vast distances now stared at the approaching ground with something his people rarely felt: fear. The Vorthak did not fear death. They were born for war. They lived for conquest. They died with honor in battle, but this was different. This was falling from the sky like a helpless creature instead of dying with a weapon in his hand. "I am Kalen of the 7th Talon," he whispered to himself, "son of War Chief Morvac. I do not die cowering in a broken ship." But even as he spoke these words, he knew the truth. His ship was beyond saving. The plasma drives were dead. The weapon systems were offline. All he could do was try to survive the crash and hope to die fighting whatever came next. The ship hit the ground with tremendous force. Kellen's body slammed against the walls as the cruiser bounced and rolled across the earth. Metal tore open like paper. Fire spread through the broken hull. The smell of burning fuel and melting electronics filled the air. When the ship finally stopped moving, Kalen lay still for a long moment. Every part of his body hurt. His left wing was twisted at an angle that made him sick to look at. Deep cuts covered his arms and legs. Worst of all, he could feel the strange tingling that meant radiation poisoning. The ship's damaged core was slowly killing him from the inside. He forced himself to stand. Walking was agony, but he had to move. The ship's emergency beacon was still working, which meant his enemies would find him soon. He needed to get away. From the crash site before they arrived, the exit hatch was jammed shut. Kalen used his remaining strength to tear it open with his bare hands. Cool night air rushed in, carrying the smell of rain and growing things. He had never experienced weather like this before. His homeworld was all desert and rock. This place was soft and green and alive. He stumbled out into the darkness. Behind him, his ship burned against the night sky like a funeral pyre. Everything he owned, everything that connected him to his people, was turning to ash. He was truly alone now. The rain started falling as he walked. It felt good against his burning skin, washing away the blood and the smell of smoke. But it also made walking harder. His damaged wing dragged through the mud. Every step sent pain shooting through his body. In the distance, he could see lights. Not the harsh white lights of Vorthak cities, but warm yellow glows that seemed to promise safety. He had studied this planet before coming here. The dominant species called themselves humans. They were small and weak, with no natural weapons, and fragile skin. His people considered them barely worth conquering, but now, as he struggled through the rain toward those distant lights, Kalen found himself hoping these weak creatures might help him. The thought made him angry with himself. A Vorthak warrior did not beg for help from lesser beings. Yet what choice did he have? His vision was getting blurry. The radiation sickness was getting worse. His body's natural healing was failing. Soon he would be too weak to continue walking. If he was going to ask for help, it had to be now. The first house he came to was large and well lit. Through the windows he could see movement inside. A human male was sitting at a desk, working on some kind of computing device. He looked wealthy and important. Surely such a person would have the resources to help an injured traveler. Kalen approached the front door slowly. He tried to make himself look less threatening, but there was only so much he could do. He was still a 12-foot-tall dragon with claws and fangs. His appearance had frightened enemies across the galaxy. Now he hoped it would not frighten away his only chance for help. He raised one clawed hand and knocked on the door. The sound echoed in the night air. Inside the house he heard movement. Footsteps. A voice calling out in the human language. The door had a small window in it. Kalen saw a human face appear, looking out at him. For a moment, their eyes met. The human's face went completely white with terror. His mouth opened in a silent scream. The face disappeared from the window. Kalen heard running footsteps and raised voices inside the house. A few moments later, he heard the human talking rapidly into some kind of communication device. The tone was urgent and frightened. Kalen understood enough of the human language to know what was happening. The man was calling for help, but not the kind of help Kalen needed. He was calling for soldiers. For weapons? For protection from the monster at his door, the warrior prince stepped back from the house and melted into the shadows. He had learned something important about these humans. They were not just weak in body, they were weak in spirit too. They saw something different from themselves, and their first instinct was to call for others to destroy it. Soon he heard the sound of flying machines in the distance. Military vehicles moving fast toward the house. Kalen forced his injured body to move faster. He needed to get away before they arrived. His right wing was completely useless now, and his left was barely functional. Running was his only option. As he stumbled through the rain toward the next cluster of lights, Kalen felt something he had never experienced before: rejection. All his life, others had feared him because of his strength. Now they feared him because of his weakness. Either way, they would not help him, but he had to try again. The radiation poisoning was spreading through his body like fire. Without help, he would be dead before sunrise. Somewhere in this city of lights, there had to be one human with enough courage to help a dying stranger. He just had to find them before his strength gave out completely. The rain kept falling as Kalen moved through the dark streets. His body was getting weaker with each step. The radiation from his destroyed ship was eating away at him from the inside. His people could heal from almost any wound, but this poison was different. It was killing him slowly, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Behind him, he could hear the sound of helicopters circling the crash site. Soon they would spread out and search the whole area. He needed to find help quickly. Before the human soldiers found him, the second house was smaller than the first, but it looked warm and safe. Light glowed from the windows, and he could see two humans inside. They were old, with gray hair and gentle faces. The male was reading a book while the female worked on some kind of needlecraft. They looked peaceful and kind. Kalen approached their door carefully. Maybe older humans would be wiser than the young businessman who had called for soldiers. Maybe they would see past his frightening appearance and help an injured stranger. He knocked on the door softly, trying not to sound threatening. Inside, he heard the old woman's voice. "Hyunwoo, someone is at the door. Who could it be at this hour?" The old man named Hyunwoo walked to the door. Kalen could see him through the small window, moving slowly with a walking stick. The man looked out, and their eyes met for a brief moment. What happened next broke something inside Kalen's chest. The old man's face filled with pure terror. He stumbled backward, dropping his walking stick. The old woman named Mijin came to see what was wrong and screamed when she saw Kalen's face in the window. "Monster! There's a monster at our door!" she cried. Both old humans ran to the back of the house. Kalen heard them calling someone on their communication device, their voices shaking with fear. They were not calling for soldiers like the first man had. They were calling for anyone who would listen, begging for help to save them from the terrible creature outside their home. Kalen backed away from the door, his heart heavy with sadness. These were not warriors or cruel people. They were just frightened old humans who had never seen anything like him before. He could not blame them for their fear, but it still hurt to be seen as nothing but a monster. He moved on to the third house, hoping desperately that someone would show him kindness. This house was full of young people. Through the window, he could see them sitting around a table with books and computers. Students, probably. Young humans were supposed to be more open to new ideas, weren't they? When he knocked on this door, A young man with bright eyes and messy hair answered. But instead of screaming or running, the student did something worse. He smiled. "This is incredible." The young man named Sunho said, pulling out a small device. "Don't move, I need to record this." The device had a camera that started flashing. Kalen realized with growing alarm that the human was taking pictures of him. Then the student started talking rapidly into the device, describing what he was seeing. "Guys, you're not going to believe this. There's some kind of alien dragon thing at my door. Look at those scales. And those wings. This is going to make me famous." Within minutes, other young humans had gathered around the door, all pointing their devices at Kalen and talking excitedly. They were not afraid of him, but they were not trying to help him either. They saw him as entertainment, something to share with their friends for attention and praise. The flashing lights hurt Kellen's eyes. The excited voices made his head pound. Worst of all, he realized that his location was now being broadcast to thousands of humans through their communication network. Soon everyone would know where he was. He turned and ran into the darkness, leaving the students behind. Their laughter and excited chatter followed him down the street. They thought his pain was amusing. They thought his suffering was just a show for their entertainment. The fourth house belonged to a human warrior. Kalen could tell because of the way the man moved and the scars on his hands. This human had fought in battles and survived. Surely one warrior would help another. But when the scarred man named Dongsik opened the door, he took one look at Kalen and slammed it shut. A moment later, the door opened again, and the barrel of a human weapon appeared. "Get away from my house!" Dongsik shouted. "I don't know what you are, but you're not welcome here." The weapon fired with a loud bang. Pain exploded in Kellen's shoulder as the metal projectile tore through his scales. He stumbled backward, green blood flowing from the wound. The human warrior fired again, and this time the shot grazed his injured wing. Kalen ran, leaving a trail of blood on the wet pavement. So much for warrior's honor. This human saw him as nothing but a threat to be eliminated. There was no recognition of shared struggle, no respect for a fellow fighter. Just fear and violence. The fifth house was decorated with religious symbols. Kalen had learned about human religions during his studies of their world. Some of them preached about helping strangers and showing kindness to those in need. Maybe these humans would be different. The family that lived there was led by a stern-faced man named Kingmin. When he saw Kalen at the door, his eyes went wide with horror and something else, anger. "Demon!" he shouted. "You will not enter this holy house." The man ran back inside and returned with a bag of white crystals and a container of liquid. He began throwing the crystals at Kalen while shouting words in what sounded like a prayer or a spell. "The power of light compels you. Return to the darkness where you belong." The liquid burned when it hit Kellen's skin. Whatever it was, these humans believed it would hurt him. More family members appeared, all throwing things at him and shouting religious words. They truly believed he was some kind of evil spirit that had come to harm them. Kalen fled again, his body now covered in new wounds and burns. The humans' fear was turning into hatred. They were not just afraid of him. They wanted him gone from their world entirely. The sixth house belonged to a human who wore a white coat and carried himself with the confidence of learning. A scientist, perhaps. Someone who studied the natural world and sought to understand new things. Surely such a person would be curious about him rather than afraid. The woman named Jiyoung did seem interested when she saw him. Her eyes lit up with excitement, and she began asking questions in rapid human speech. For a moment, Kalen felt hope rising in his chest, but then she disappeared and returned with a strange device that made a hissing sound. Before Kalen could react, he felt a sharp pain in his neck. The human had shot him with some kind of dart that contained a sleeping poison. "Don't worry," she said, as his vision began to blur. "I'm going to study you. You're going to make me famous in the scientific community. Think of all the things we can learn from you." Kalen realized with growing alarm that this human saw him as nothing but a specimen to be examined and dissected. She did not want to help him. She wanted to cut him open and study his organs while he was still alive. He used his remaining strength. to tear the dart from his neck and stumble away before the poison could take full effect. Behind him, he heard the scientist calling out in frustration, probably planning to try again with a stronger dose. The seventh house was the largest and most expensive-looking building on the street. It belonged to a wealthy human named Sangwoo, who dressed in fine clothes and spoke with the confidence of someone who was used to getting what he wanted. When this human saw Kalen, his eyes filled not with fear but with a different kind of hunger. The same look Kalen had seen in the eyes of slave traders and weapons dealers. "Fascinating," the rich man said, speaking into a communication device. "Yes, I need a capture team immediately. Bring the strongest restraints you have. And make sure they're equipped with energy weapons. This specimen is going to be worth a fortune." Kalen heard vehicles approaching in the distance. More humans with weapons and traps, coming to capture him like a valuable animal. This human did not see him as a person at all. He saw him as property to be bought and sold. The eighth house looked ordinary from the outside, but when the door opened, Kalen saw that it was full of strange equipment and flashing lights. The human who lived there was a thin, nervous man named Woojin, who kept looking over his shoulder as if he expected someone to attack him at any moment. "I knew this day would come," the man said, raising a weapon that looked nothing like the ones human soldiers carried. "You're one of them, aren't you? A government experiment that escaped from their secret laboratory. Well, I'm ready for you." The weapon fired a beam of crackling energy that made Kellen's scales burn. The paranoid human truly believed that his own government had created Kalen as some kind of secret weapon. In his mind, helping Kalen would mean betraying his own species. The ninth house was small and quiet. Through the window, Kalen could see a young human woman named Sumin holding a tiny human infant. The baby was sleeping peacefully in her arms, and she was singing to him in a soft, gentle voice. This was the most beautiful thing Kalen had ever seen. For a moment, he forgot about his pain and his fear. He had never seen such pure love and tenderness. His own people did not care for their young this way. Vorthic children were trained to fight as soon as they could walk. When the woman saw him at the window, her face went pale with terror. But she did not run or scream. Instead, she held her baby closer and backed away slowly. Her eyes never left Kalen's face. The rain had stopped, but Kalen barely noticed. His massive body was shutting down piece by piece. The radiation poisoning had spread through his blood like liquid fire. His vision kept blurring and clearing. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. Each step forward took enormous effort. The 10th house sat at the end of a quiet street. It was smaller than most of the others, with a simple design and a well-kept garden. Warm light glowed from the windows, and he could see two humans. Inside, they looked young and busy with their evening activities. Kalen stopped at the edge of their property and looked down at himself. His purple scales were cracked and bleeding. His wings hung uselessly at his sides. Green blood had dried on his arms and legs from the various wounds he had received during the night. He looked exactly like what the humans feared most. A monster dot, but he had no choice left. This was his last chance. He dragged himself across the garden, leaving a trail of blood on the carefully tended grass. His legs finally gave out just as he reached the front door. He collapsed face first onto the ground, too weak to even lift his head. Through the window above him, he could hear voices. A man and a woman talking quietly about their day. They sounded calm and peaceful, unaware that death was lying just outside their door. Kalen tried to lift his hand to knock, but his arm would not obey him. The radiation had finally won. His body was no longer his to control. He could only lie there and wait for the end to come. That was when the door opened. Double quotes, Jae-yeon? Did you hear something outside? A woman's voice asked. I thought I heard something fall in the garden, a man replied. Maybe a tree branch came down in the storm. Footsteps approached. Kalen heard a sharp intake of breath as someone saw him. Oh my God, the woman whispered. Kalen waited for the screaming to start. He waited for the door to slam shut. He waited for the sound of weapons being loaded or emergency calls being made. But instead, he heard something unexpected. Yunha, get my medical kit from the kitchen, quickly. The man's voice was calm but urgent. Like someone who had dealt with emergencies before? Kalen felt gentle hands touching his neck, checking for a pulse. The touch was careful and professional, not afraid or disgusted. Is it alive? The woman named Yunha asked as she returned. Yes, but barely. Look at these wounds. And this blood is not normal. There's something wrong with its body chemistry. The man called Jinho was examining Kellen's injuries with practiced skill. His hands moved carefully over the torn scales and damaged wing joints. Despite his terrifying appearance, this human was treating him like any other injured creature. We need to get him inside, Junho said. He's too heavy for us to carry, but we can drag him into the garage. Are you sure about this? Yunha asked. We don't know what he is or where he came from. He could be dangerous. Look at him, Junho replied gently. He's dying. Whatever he is, he's someone's son or brother or father. He came here looking for help, and we're the only ones who can give it to him. Kalen felt himself being pulled across the ground. The humans were surprisingly strong for their size, and they worked together to move his massive form. Soon he was lying on a soft surface in a warm, dry space that smelled of motor oil and gardening tools, the man named. Jianho began cleaning his wounds with gentle efficiency. He used water and soft cloth to wash away the dried blood. He applied medicines that stung at first but then made the pain fade. His hands were skilled and confident, like someone who had done this many times before. You're a veterinarian, Kalen whispered in his own language, though he knew they could not understand him. Did he just speak? Yunha asked with amazement. I think so. His throat structure looks like it could produce complex sounds. Jinho paused in his work to look into Kellen's eyes. Can you understand us? Kalen tried to nod, but his head was too heavy. Instead, he managed to make a small sound. That might have been agreement. English, he whispered, forcing the human word through his damaged throat. Little. Both humans looked at each other with wonder. They had not expected him to be intelligent, much less able to communicate. My name is Jinho, the man said slowly. And clearly, this is my sister, Yuna. We want to help you. Do you understand? Help, Kalen repeated, tasting the word. It was such a simple concept, but no one had offered it to him until now. Why? It was Yunha who answered. Because you're hurt. Because you came to our door asking for help. Because it's the right thing to do. Kellen's eyes filled with tears. In his whole life, no one had ever said those words to him. His people helped each other only when it served their own interests. They showed mercy only to those who could repay it. The idea of helping someone simply because it was right was completely foreign to him. What are you? Jinhon asked as he continued working on the worst wounds. Vorthik, Kalen said, struggling with the unfamiliar human sounds. From stars, far away. You're an alien, Yuna said with excitement. You came from space. Kalen nodded. Slightly. Ship broken, I crash, I hurt bad. We can see that, Jinho said. But we're going to take care of you. You're safe now. Safe, another word that had no meaning in Kellen's world. Vorthak were never safe. They were always fighting, always watching for enemies, always ready to kill or be killed. But lying here in this warm garage with these gentle humans tending his wounds, he began to understand what the word meant. Over the next several hours, Jinho and Yunha worked together to stabilize his condition. They brought him water and food, though he could barely manage to swallow. They covered him with soft blankets to keep him warm. They talked to him in quiet, soothing voices. The radiation poisoning is the worst problem, Junho explained to his sister. His body is fighting some kind of internal contamination. I can treat the external wounds, but I don't know how to help with the rest. Maybe we can find information. Online, Yuna suggested. There must be scientific papers about radiation effects on living tissue. They spent the night researching and experimenting, trying different treatments and medicines. Kalen drifted in and out of consciousness, but every time he woke up, they were still there. Still working, still caring. Why do you do this? he asked during one of his lucid moments. You not know me? I could be enemy. You're not our enemy, Yuna said firmly. You're someone who needs help. That's all we need to know. But your people, Kalen said, they fear me. They want me gone. Some do, Junho admitted, but not all of us. Some of us believe that helping others is what makes us human. Kalen thought about this as he rested. His people believed that strength came from conquest and domination. They measured worth by the number of enemies killed and worlds conquered. But these humans seemed to find strength in compassion and kindness. They risked their own safety to help a stranger who could offer them nothing in return. I am Prince, he told them as dawn light began to filter through the garage windows, son of great war chief. My people rule many worlds. That must be a heavy burden, Yuna said. Always having to be strong, always having to fight. No one had ever seen his status as a burden before. To his people, being a prince was an honor and a privilege. But Yunha was right. It was also a weight that had crushed the joy out of his life. I never learned to be weak, he said. Never learned to ask for help. My people say weakness is death. Your people are wrong, Junho said gently. Everyone needs help sometimes. Admitting you need help takes courage, not weakness. As the morning progressed, Kalen began to feel slightly stronger. The medicines were working and the radiation poisoning seemed to be stabilizing. More importantly, the emotional wounds that had been carved into his soul by 9 rejections were beginning to heal. Why you different? He asked his 2 caretakers. Other humans run away. You stay. Because we see you, Yunha replied. Not a monster or an alien or a threat? Just a person who needed help. My job is to heal injured animals, Junho added. I've learned that every living thing deserves care and kindness, no matter what they look like. Kalen closed his eyes and felt something new growing in his chest. It was not the burning pride of his warrior heritage or the cold calculation of a military mind. It was something warmer and softer, something that made him want to protect these humans not because they were useful, but because they were good. I think, he said carefully, I learned new thing about strength. What's that? Ona asked. Maybe strongest thing is to care for others, even when they cannot help you back. Both humans smiled at this. It was the first time Kalen had seen them. Truly happy since he arrived. Their smiles were beautiful, full of warmth and hope. You're going to be okay, Junho said. We'll take care of you until you're strong enough to decide what you want to do next. I want to understand, Kalen said. I want to learn how to be like you. How to be strong without being cruel. We can teach you, Yunha offered. If you want to learn. Kalen nodded, feeling tears on his scaled cheeks again. For the first time in his life, he was exactly where he belonged. Not on a battlefield or in a war room, but in a quiet garage with 2 humans who had shown him what real strength looked like. The 10th door had not just opened to let him in. It had opened to show him a completely different way of being alive. Days passed slowly in the warm garage. Kellen's body grew stronger with each sunrise, but his mind was changing even more than his physical form. The radiation poisoning was slowly leaving his system thanks to Junho's careful treatment and medicines. More importantly, the poison of hatred and pride that had filled his heart for so long was also beginning to fade. Jaeyeon Aesho came to check on him. Every morning before going to work at his animal clinic, he would examine Kellen's wounds, change his bandages, and bring him fresh food and water. At first, Kalen had been suspicious of this kindness. In his world, no one did anything without expecting something in return. But as the days went by, he began to understand that Junho truly expected nothing from him except to get better. How do you know so much about healing? Kalen asked one morning as Junho cleaned a deep cut on his arm. I studied for many years to become a veterinarian, Junho replied. I wanted to help animals who could not help themselves. But I am not animal, Kalen said. I am alien, different species. Junho smiled. All living things are connected. The basic needs are the same: food, water, shelter, safety. And sometimes, just someone who cares. Kalen thought about this. On his homeworld, caring was seen as weakness. Vorthek leaders were expected to be cold and calculating. They made decisions based on logic and strength, never on feelings or emotions. But here was this human who had built his entire life around caring for others. And he seemed stronger than most warriors Kaylin had known. Yunha spent her evenings in the garage, sitting beside Kaylin and teaching him more human language. She was patient and gentle, never getting frustrated when he struggled with difficult words. She worked with people who had been hurt in their minds and hearts, helping them heal from terrible experiences. "Your job is to fix broken spirits," Kaylin said one evening as they practiced conversation. "I try to help people find their way back to happiness," Yunha explained. "Sometimes life hurts us so badly that we forget how to feel joy. My job is to remind them." "I think maybe I forget too," Kaylin admitted. "Long time ago I was different, before war, before killing." "What were you like before?" Yunha asked gently. Kaylin was quiet for a long moment. No one had ever asked him this question before. "I was curious. I liked to learn about stars and planets. I wanted to explore and discover new things. But my father said curiosity was weakness. He said I must be warrior or I would bring shame to family." "There's no shame in curiosity," Yunha said. "Some of the strongest people I know are the ones who keep asking questions and wanting to learn." As the weeks passed, Kaylin began to share more stories about his life and his people. He told them about the endless wars between Vorthak clans, how they conquered weaker species for sport and glory. He described the cold metal cities where emotions were forbidden and strength was the only virtue that mattered. "We believe that to show mercy is to show weakness," he explained. "We teach our children to kill before they can barely walk. We celebrate destruction and call it victory." "That sounds like a very lonely way to live," Junho said. "It is," Kaylin admitted, "but I never knew there was another way. Until I met you." In return, Junho and Yunha shared their own stories. They told him about their childhood, growing up in a small town where everyone knew each other. They spoke about their parents, who had died in a car accident when they were young, and how they had learned to take care of each other. "We learned that family is not just blood," Yunha said. "Family is the people who stay with you when things get difficult. The people who love you even when you make mistakes." "Like you do for me?" Kaylin said. "Yes," Junho agreed. "Like we do?" For you, Kaylin began to understand that these humans had something his people had lost long ago. They had community. They had love. They had the ability to find joy in simple things like shared meals and quiet conversations. One evening, Yunha brought her art supplies to the garage. She showed Kaylin how to mix colors and create pictures with paint and brushes. His large claws were clumsy at first, but she helped him learn to control them. "Art is about expressing what is inside your heart," she explained. "It does not have to be perfect. It just has to be true." Kaylin painted a picture of his homeworld, but it looked nothing like the glorious empire he had always described. Instead, he painted empty skies and dead ground, buildings that looked like prisons, people who walked alone without ever touching or smiling. "Is this how you really see your world?" Yunha asked when he showed her the painting. "Yes," Kaylin said, quietly. "Now I see it with new eyes. We have great power, but we have no happiness. We have won many battles, but we have lost our souls." "What would you change if you could?" Junho asked. Kaylin thought carefully about this question. "I would teach them what you taught me. That strength comes from helping others, not hurting them, that the greatest victory is making someone smile, not making them afraid. Do you think they would listen?" Yuna asked. "Some might," Kaylin said. "If I could show them what I have learned here. If I could prove that there is another way to live." As his body healed, Kaylin began to help with small tasks around the house. He was careful with his great strength, learning to be gentle with fragile human objects. He helped Junho carry heavy supplies for his clinic. He assisted Yunha by moving furniture for her art therapy sessions. "You are very strong," Junho observed one day as Kaylin easily lifted a cabinet that would have taken 3 humans to move. "My people are all strong in body," Kaylin replied. But you are strong in ways I never learned. You are strong in here. He placed his clawed hand over his heart. Everyone has that strength inside them, Yuna said. Sometimes it just needs the right conditions to grow. Like plant needing water and sunlight, Kalen said, proud of his improving language skills. Exactly like that, she agreed, one night. As they sat together in the garage sharing dinner, Kalen asked a question that had been troubling him. Why do your people fear me so much? I know I look different, but I'm not so different inside. Jinho and Yunha exchanged a look. They had been dreading this conversation, but they knew it was important. Many humans are afraid of things they do not understand, Junho said carefully. When people see something new or different, their first instinct is often to protect themselves. But some humans are also curious and kind, Yunha added. You just had bad luck with the first 9 houses. Not all humans would have reacted that way. I was angry at first, Kalen admitted. I thought all humans were cowards or cruel. But then I found you and I learned that I was wrong to judge all humans by the actions of a few. Just like we learned not to judge you by your appearance, Junho said. Fear makes people do foolish things sometimes. My people would say that. Fear makes species weak, Kalen said. But I think fear also makes species careful. And being careful can be a good thing if you do not let it stop you from being kind. As the weeks turned into months, Kalen discovered many things about human culture that amazed him. He learned about music and was fascinated by how sounds could create emotions. He discovered literature and was moved by stories of human heroes who sacrificed themselves for others. He learned about human history and was surprised to find that humans had also fought terrible wars, but had learned to build peace. Your species makes mistakes, he said one evening, but you learn from them, you change and grow. My people only know how to repeat same mistakes over and over. Change is possible for any species, Yuna said. But it takes courage to admit you need to change. And you have to want something better, Junho added. You have to believe that there is a better way to live. Kalen nodded. I believe now. Because I have seen it. I have lived it here with you. The transformation was not just mental. As Kalen healed, his body also began to change. His scales, which had been dull and scarred, began to shine with health. His wings, which had been torn and useless slowly, regained their strength. But most importantly, his eyes changed. The cold yellow eyes of a predator became warm and gentle, full of kindness he had never shown before. You look different, Yuna observed one day. I feel different, Kalen replied. I feel like person I was supposed to be before war changed me. What do you want to do now? Junho asked. You are strong enough to leave if you want to. Kalen looked around the garage that had become his home. He looked at the 2 humans who had become his family. For the first time in his life, he was exactly where he wanted to be. I want to stay, he said. I want to learn more. I want to find a way to help others like you help me. Then you will stay, Yuna said simply, for as long as you want. But what if others come looking for me? Kalen asked. What if they try to hurt you because you helped me? Then we will face that problem together, Junho said. As a family, Kalen felt tears in his eyes again. But this time they were tears of joy. He had found something worth protecting, something worth fighting for. Not conquest or glory, but love and kindness and the simple happiness of being accepted. Exactly as he was, I promise, he said to both of them. I will never let anyone hurt you. You saved my life. Now I will spend my life keeping you safe. But even as he spoke these words, Kalen knew that danger was coming. Somewhere in the stars above, his people were searching for him. And somewhere in the human government, officials were still hunting for the alien who had crashed near their city. 3 months had passed since Kellen's crash landing. The garage had become his sanctuary, filled with art supplies, books, and the warm presence of his human family. But the peaceful days were about to end. Unknown to the 3 friends, too. Very different hunting parties were closing in on their location. In a military command center across the city, Colonel Changmin studied satellite images on a large screen. His team had been tracking the alien presence for months, following every lead and witness report. The trail had gone cold after the first few days, but Changmin was patient. He knew the creature was still out there somewhere. "Sir, we have a new development," his assistant reported. "Intelligence has identified a pattern in the early sightings. The creature was moving through residential areas in a specific direction. If we extrapolate the path, it leads to this neighborhood." Changmin looked at the map with sharp eyes. "Begin systematic searches of every building in that area. Check heat signatures, unusual power consumption, anything that might indicate someone is hiding something large." "What if the civilians resist?" Questioning, the assistant asked. "Then we remind them that harboring an alien threat is an act of treason," Changmin replied coldly. "The safety of our nation comes first." Meanwhile, far above the earth, another hunter was approaching. War Commander Thex commanded the fastest pursuit ship in the Vorthak fleet. His orders were simple: find Prince Kalen and bring him back for trial or eliminate him if he had been corrupted by alien influence. "Commander, we are detecting energy signatures from the planet's surface," his weapons officer reported. "The residual radiation from the prince's destroyed ship is still traceable. Narrow the search to the crash site and expand outward," Thex ordered. He could not have traveled far with his injuries. "Begin deep scans of the surrounding area." Thex had known Kalen since they were children. They had trained together, fought together, and served the Vorthak Empire together. But duty came before friendship. If Kalen had been weakened by contact with the humans, he would have to die for the honor of their people. In the garage, Kalen was teaching Yunha how to pronounce words in his native language when he suddenly froze. His sensitive hearing had picked up something that made his blood run cold. The high-pitched whine of Vorthak scanning equipment, barely audible but unmistakable. "They have found me," he whispered, his face going pale beneath his scales. "Who has found you?" Junho asked, immediately alert to the fear in his friend's voice. "My people. They send hunters when warrior goes missing too long. They think I am dead or dishonored." Yuna grabbed his arm. "What will they do when they find you?" "They will try to take me back for trial. If I resist, they will kill me. If I go with them, they will execute me for bringing shame to our clan." "Then we run," Juno said immediately. "We pack up and leave the city tonight." But Kalen shook his head. "You do not understand. Vorthak hunters do not give up. They will follow until they find me. And when they do, they will kill anyone who helped me." "So what do we do?" Yuna asked. "You must leave. Go far away and never come back. Let me face them alone." "Absolutely not," Junho said firmly. "We are family. We do not abandon family." Before Kalen could argue, they heard vehicles approaching outside. Not the smooth hum of Vorthak technology, but the rough engines of human military trucks. Through the small garage window, they could see soldiers surrounding the house. "This is Colonel Changmin of the Republic of Korea Armed Forces," a voice called through a loudspeaker. "We have evidence that alien technology or entities may be present in this building. Exit immediately with your hands visible." Kellen's heart sank. His human family was trapped between two different hunting parties, and both wanted him dead or captured. "We cannot run now," he said quietly, "but I will not let them hurt you." "What are you going to do?" Yunha asked. "I am going to surrender to the human soldiers. Maybe they will let you go if they have what they want." "No," Junho said. "There has to be another way." But even as he spoke, they heard a new sound. A deep thrumming that seemed to come from the sky itself. Through the garage window, they could see a dark shape hovering above the house, blocking out the stars. "Vorthak's ship," Kalen whispered. "They are here too." The situation had become impossible. Human soldiers surrounded the building from the ground while alien hunters circled from above. Kalen realized that his worst fear was coming true. The two beings he loved most in the universe were about to be caught in a war between species. "I am sorry," he told Junho and Inha. "I brought this danger to you. I should have left when I was strong enough." "Stop apologizing," Yunha said firmly. "You did not choose to crash here. You did not choose to be hunted. You only chose to trust us, and that was the right choice. But now you will die because of me." Kalen said, his voice breaking with emotion. Maybe, Junho admitted, but we will die as a family. And sometimes that is the only choice that matters. Outside the human, soldiers were growing impatient. You have 30 seconds to exit the building or we will enter by force, Colonel Changmin announced. At the same time, a new voice spoke from the sky. It was deep and harsh, speaking in the Vorthak language. Prince Kalen of the 7th Talon, you will surrender yourself immediately or face the consequences of your cowardice. Kalen recognized the voice. Vex, he said. My old friend has come to kill me. Maybe we can talk to them, Yunha suggested. Maybe we can make them understand that you have changed. Humans shoot first and ask questions later, Kalen replied. And Vorthak do not negotiate with beings they consider inferior. Then we fight, Junho said simply. Kalen stared at his human friend. You are veterinarian, you heal animals. You are not warrior. I am warrior for the things I love, Junho replied. And I love you, both of you. That makes me dangerous to anyone who tries to hurt my family. The countdown reached 0. The garage door exploded inward as human soldiers rushed in, weapons ready. At the same moment, the roof tore open as Vorthak warriors descended on energy cables, the two hunting. Parties saw each other and immediately opened fire. Plasma bolts and bullet streams filled the air as two species that had never met before began fighting over the right to capture or kill Kaelen. In the chaos, Kalen made a decision that would change everything. Instead of fighting or surrendering, he stood up to his full height and roared. The sound was so loud and powerful that it stopped both human and Vorthak warriors in their tracks. Enough, he shouted in both languages. I am Prince Kalen of the 7th Talon, and I claim right of single combat. The garage fell silent. Everyone stared at the massive alien who had just invoked one of the oldest laws in Vorthak culture. War Commander Thex dropped down from his ship, his armor gleaming in the garage lights. You dare claim warriors' rights after hiding with these pathetic creatures? I claim the right to defend my family, Kalen replied. If you want me, you must face me in honorable combat. Family? Thex laughed. These are not your family. These are animals you have been playing with. These humans have more honor than any Vorthak I have ever known, Kalen said. They risked their lives to help a stranger. They asked for nothing in return. They showed me what true strength means. Colonel Changmin stepped forward. I do not understand what you are saying, but this creature is under arrest by the authority of the Republic of Korea. He is under sentence of death by the authority of the Vorthak Empire, Thex replied in broken English. Then you will both have to go through me, Kalen said, spreading his wings wide. I will not let either of you harm my family. The standoff continued, with 3 different species facing each other in the ruins of the garage. But Kalen was no longer the same warrior who had crashed on Earth months ago. He was no longer fighting for conquest or glory. He was fighting for love, for family, for the simple right to choose his own destiny. The final battle was about to begin. But this time, Kalen would not be fighting alone. Junho and Unha stood beside him, ready to face whatever came next. They might be small and weak compared to the armored warriors surrounding them, but they had something more powerful than any weapon. They had each other. The hunt was over. Now came the reckoning. The garage was filled with tension as 3 different groups faced each other. Human soldiers with their weapons raised, Vorthak warriors in their battle armor, and in the center, Kalen standing protectively in front of Junho and Unha, war commander. Vex studied his old friend with cold eyes. You have changed, Kalen. You stand like a guardian instead of a conqueror. You speak of family with creatures that are not even the same species. I have learned what you never could, Kalen replied. That strength comes from protecting others, not destroying them. Colonel Changmin kept his weapon trained on Kalen but spoke to his men. Hold fire unless they attack first. I want to understand. What is happening here? Vex activated his energy blade. There's nothing to understand. The prince has been infected by alien weakness. He must be cleansed or eliminated. Wait, Yuna said, stepping forward despite the danger. Please, both of you. Listen to what he is trying to tell you. Silence, animal, Vex snarled. You have no voice in matters of honor. The insult made Kellen's eyes flash with anger. Do not speak to her that way. She has more honor in her smallest finger than you have in your entire body. Prove it, Vex challenged. If these creatures mean so much to you, then die for them. Face me in single combat. When you lose, I will kill all three of you quickly instead of making you suffer. Kalen looked at Jinho and Yunha. They both nodded, showing they trusted him. Completely. Their faith gave him strength. I accept, Kalen said, but I have conditions. You are not in a position to make demands, Colonel Changmin said. Yes, I am, Kalen replied. Because I am the only one who can prevent a war between your species and mine. If the Vorthic warrior kills me, he will report back that humans are weak and easy to conquer. If your soldiers kill me, my people will assume you are a threat and respond with force. Both commanders realized he was right. This single moment could determine the future relationship between two civilizations. What are your conditions? Vex asked. If I win, you return to our people and tell them that humans are not weak. Tell them that strength can take many forms. Tell them that conquering this world would bring no honor, only shame. And if I win, Vex asked, then you spare my friends and leave this world in peace. They are not part of our conflict, Vex considered this. Acceptable, but you will not win, old friend. You have grown soft living among these creatures. The two Vorthic warriors faced each other in the center of the garage. The human soldiers formed a circle around them, weapons ready but held low. Everyone understood that this fight would determine much more than just Kellen's fate. Vex attacked first, his energy blade cutting through the air where Kellen's head had been moments before. But Kalen was no longer the same fighter. Months of peace had not made him weaker. They had made him calmer, more focused, more precise. You fight differently, Vex observed as they circled each other. Where is your rage? Where is your killing? Instinct? I no longer fight to destroy, Kalen replied, deflecting another strike. I fight to protect. The battle continued for several minutes. Both warriors were skilled, but they fought for different reasons. Vex fought for duty and honor as his people defined them. Kalen fought for love and the right to choose his own. Destiny. As the fight progressed, something unexpected happened. The human soldiers began to understand what they were witnessing. This was not just a battle between two aliens. This was a battle between two different ways of seeing the world. Colonel Changmin lowered his weapon. Stand down, he ordered his men. This is not our fight, sir? His lieutenant asked. The big one is protecting the humans, Changmin explained. He is not our enemy. Meanwhile, Vex was beginning to realize that his old friend was not weakened by his time with humans. If anything, he seemed stronger. His movements were more fluid, his attacks more thoughtful. What have these creatures done to you? Vex demanded. As their blades locked together, they taught me to be better than I was, Kalen replied. They showed me that true warriors protect the innocent, not prey upon them. Weakness! Vex roared, breaking the lock and striking harder, but Kalen was ready. He caught Vex's blade in his bare hand, ignoring the pain as it cut deep into his palm. With his other hand, he struck Vex in the center of his chest, sending him flying backward into the wall. Vex struggled to stand, his armor cracked and sparking. Impossible. You should not be able to defeat me. I could always defeat you, Kalen said sadly. But before I fought with hatred and anger. Now I fight with love and purpose. Love is stronger than hate, old friend. Vex looked around the garage at the humans who had risked everything to help his former comrade. He saw the gentle veterinarian who had healed Kellen's wounds. He saw the artist who had taught him to create instead of destroy. He saw the soldiers who had lowered their weapons when they understood the truth. These humans, he said slowly. They are not what our leaders told us they were. No, Kalen agreed. They are much more. They are capable of kindness without reward. They are capable of courage without conquest. They are capable of strength without cruelty. Vex deactivated his energy blade. I cannot return to our people. With this knowledge, they would call me a traitor. Then do not return, Kalen suggested. Stay here, learn what I have learned, see what I have seen, and abandon my duty? Your duty is to serve your people, but maybe the best way to serve them is to show them a better path. Colonel Changmin stepped forward. If you are willing to stay peacefully, we can arrange for you to remain as a cultural ambassador, like your friend here. Vex looked at Kalen with new understanding. You are not hiding among these humans. You are building bridges between our peoples. That is what I hope to do, Kalen confirmed. Will you help me? The Vorthek warrior was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. I will try. But it will not be easy to change the minds of our people. All important changes start with one person choosing to do something different, Yunhe said gently. Then others follow one at a time. Over the following weeks, news of the encounter spread through both human and Vorthek governments. Some leaders on both sides were angry and wanted to continue preparing for war. But others were curious about the possibilities that cooperation might bring. Kalen and Vex worked together to establish a small cultural exchange center in the same neighborhood where Kalen had once been rejected by 9 houses. The building was constructed where the garage had once stood, expanded to include meeting rooms, libraries, and workshops. Junho continued his work as a veterinarian, but now he also served as a medical consultant for the exchange program. His gentle approach to healing helped other humans overcome their fear of the Vorthek visitors. Yunhe became the center's first intercultural counselor, helping both species understand each other's emotional needs and communication styles. Her art therapy sessions brought together human children and young Vorthek in ways that amazed everyone. The first group of human students traveled to the Vorthak homeworld 6 months after the garage confrontation. They returned with stories of a proud but lonely people who had forgotten how to find joy in simple things. The first group of Vorthak students arrived on Earth shortly after. They were amazed by human creativity, confused by human emotions, and deeply moved by human compassion. Change is slow, Kalen told a group of visiting dignitaries from both species. But it is possible. I am proof of that. How do we know this? Cooperation will last? Asked a skeptical Vorthek general. Kalen smiled and gestured to the center's garden, where human and Vorthek children were playing together, laughing and sharing toys despite their different appearances. Because the young ones do not see enemies when they look at each other, he said. They see friends, they see possibilities. They see a future where our peoples can learn from each other instead of fighting. The general watched a human girl teaching a young Vorthek how to make flower crowns. The alien child's natural claws were clumsy with the delicate stems, but the human girl was patient and encouraging. Perhaps, the general admitted, there is wisdom in what you say. Years later, when historians wrote about the first contact between humans and Vorthak, they would focus on the dramatic battle in the garage or the complex diplomatic negotiations that followed. But Kalen knew that the real turning point had been much simpler. It had been the moment when a veterinarian and an art therapist chose to open their door to a wounded stranger. It had been the moment when they decided that kindness was more important than safety, that compassion was stronger than fear. The 10th door had not just saved one alien's life. It had opened a pathway between worlds, proving that sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquest, but from the simple act of extending kindness to someone in need. In the center's garden, a small plaque marked the spot where Kalen had first collapsed. It read, "In memory of the 9 doors that closed and celebration of the 10th door that opened. May we all have the courage to be the 10th door for those who need us." Every day, children from both species would read those words and ask their teachers what they meant. And every day, those teachers would tell them the story of how love conquered fear, how compassion defeated hatred, and how 2 small acts of kindness changed the fate of 2 entire civilizations.